the participant tab, which is in the bottom right of your screen. This is also where you can ask any questions in the Q&A box. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just feel free to put your questions there and we'll address them later. But we're just going to turn our time now over to our presenters and they will introduce themselves.
Thanks, Marianne. I will go ahead and get us started. I'm Janae Mortensen. I'm the section manager for Salt Lake County Active Aging Program. Our Active Aging Program includes all of our senior centers as well as our health promotion team. And then I'll let James and Pauline introduce themselves before we jump into everything.
I am James Witucky, program manager for Active Aging, which means that I oversee 8 senior centers and their staff. And that's it. Pauline?
Can you hear me okay? All right, I'm Pauline McBride, and I am the other program manager within Active Aging, and I oversee our south end of the valley senior centers and do kind of more the data and work with our office specialists.
Perfect. Thank you so much, you guys. So we are going to jump into our presentation, and we'll definitely have questions at the end, or we'll be able to answer questions at the end, but also feel free to put questions in the Q&A box, and we will be able to address those as they come in if they need to be addressed immediately or hold them until the end. Also, I do want to say, I know a lot of people started virtual programs this last year because the world tried to come to an end on us. So this is just Salt Lake County's approach to addressing virtual senior centers, not just because of the pandemic, but also it identified that there was a need that we weren't meeting with our regular senior centers and that there was a way to connect with seniors outside of the physical buildings. And so while the pandemic was incredibly difficult on so many different levels, it also identified some areas where we could grow and expand to reach seniors in a new way. So Pauline is going to be our leader for the presentation itself for the PowerPoint. So Pauline, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the PowerPoint and we'll jump in. All right. Oh, Pauline, I think you have your setting on a different setting. Go to Technical issues always happen, which is one of the things we'll cover in our virtual senior center presentation as well.
Pauline, if you go down to the bottom right-hand corner where it's the minimize and zoom, right next to there is where you can press the slideshow, and that might be what you want.
There we go, perfect. See, great problem solving, and Lindsay just demonstrated one of the things that we also do in our virtual senior center with tech support during classes. But to start out, the virtual senior center, like I said, we all experienced the world trying to come to an end last year with closing senior centers, and like Karen said in our beginning presentation, we went from, it was on a Thursday and I was in a meeting. We were talking about how are we going to close senior centers and what does that look like? When we got the news, senior centers closed today and figure something out for tomorrow. So we had a pretty fast requirement to make a change. And while it did take us several months to launch the Virtual Senior Center because there was so much unknown, I'm incredibly proud of our entire team for how we were able to launch our Virtual Senior Center to connect with seniors on a different way. So some of the benefits of the Virtual Senior Center, with the pandemic, it really allowed for reconnecting seniors with their friends in classes and groups online. It also allowed people to do activities exercise, and do crafts at home while they were practicing social distancing, which was so important for our seniors. But then also what we discovered was we were connecting with new seniors that we hadn't previously been able to connect with because they were working seniors, or they were homebound, or they didn't have the means to go to a center. They may have been a caregiver. So the Virtual Senior Center allowed us to connect with people that even under normal circumstances weren't able to come to the center. So our Virtual Senior Center, connecting outside of the center walls. What? Well, we launched a Virtual Senior Center, and in all reality, we wanted everything that was provided at a regular center, well, we offered virtually if it was possible. So we had arts and crafts, we had exercise programs, we had book clubs, we had a variety of different things to meet the need of everyone. Who were we reaching out to? We initially started really trying to target our population that wasn't able to come to our center anymore. But like I said, as we progressed, we realized that we were connecting with people, and our seniors were sharing it with their friends who had never come to a center before. So we were able to reach people in a new way. What we're going to talk about today, though, is the foundation to build a virtual program, which we experienced a lot of bumps and challenges and all those things that you experience while you're creating a new program. But we're going to go into the creating of the classes, the registration process, which oftentimes we forget about those integral parts of behind the scenes and how to make this work. Because we had great programs, but if our registration process and our behind the scenes wasn't working, we had lots of glitches because, especially with the virtual center, you're relying so much on what's in the computer to be able to connect with people. And then also going into the marketing, and then the final implementation, actually making the classes happen. So next, again, we were talking about the who. So our homebound seniors, people that were staying home due to COVID closures, our Meals on Wheels clients that we hadn't really connected with before because we were just the physical buildings of senior centers. When we launched the Virtual Senior Center, we also started expanding our marketing to our Meals on Wheels clients, our community care transitions clients, our homebound seniors that we had never really made much of an effort to market to because they weren't able to come to our buildings. Well, now we had this opportunity to connect with them in a new way. And then, like I said, our caregivers who aren't able to leave their homes very often because they're providing care for a loved one. And then we also discovered that we were able to reach our working seniors. We've tried a variety of different ways to target our working seniors. We've had early hours, we've had late hours, we've tried Saturday hours, and none of them were really sticking with getting a ton of response. Our evening hours, typically we ended up with the same people who were there during the day, they just stayed a little bit longer. Our morning hours, we get more people doing fitness and then they're taking off. So by doing the Virtual Senior Center, especially with our YouTube classes or our self-guided classes, we've been able to reach seniors that couldn't stick to a traditional time frame that we had outlined for classes. So why we did this, like I've said, our COVID closures drastically impacted our ability to connect with seniors and for seniors to be able to do activities. And we all know that isolation and loneliness is so detrimental to someone's health. And the COVID closures and people doing social distancing, when we started making wellness calls at the very beginning of COVID, the number one thing we heard from our staff was, our participants are so lonely at home. We're seeing so many more people with depression because of isolation. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to connect. And our wellness phone calls, we were calling just to check in with people. But as things progressed, our wellness calls got longer and longer and longer. And some of our staff were spending 45 minutes to an hour with one person because they weren't talking to anyone else and they didn't have anything else to do. So we started thinking of things to do. We also thought it was really important, like I said, with caregivers. So often, caregivers forget about themselves and their sole focus is on their care receiver. And the Virtual Senior Center allows an opportunity for self care, that they can take a break and do something for them while still staying at home to provide care. But it also provides an opportunity for activities that they can do with their care receiver. So it really was a benefit to our caregivers on both sides. So that's kind of the why and the root of why we wanted to launch our virtual senior center and what were the important factors for us to consider. Next, we're going to get into the actual foundation of building it. So I'm going to turn the time over to James Witucky. The way we have our system set up is James does more of the front of the house, the actual programming and marketing and those types of things for our programs. And then Pauline will do the behind the scenes of all of the registration process and the data and all those types of things. So we'll turn the time over to James to talk about programming.
Thank you. As Janae said at the very beginning of COVID, we had to pivot. So the first thing we did was we quickly created a drive-through meal program and started figuring out ways to reach out to our clients through wellness calls. As the drive-through meal program progressed, we found that we needed a source to communicate to our participants on what was going on with aging and adult services, with the meal programs, with the wellness calls. And so the first step in that was that we created a newsletter, which was called the Senior Scoop. And the Senior Scoop was really sort of built to communicate to our participants what we were doing. And we did that pretty early on in the COVID process. And then one day, Pauline, Janae, and I were talking, and we were discussing like when we open, and it came up that maybe we're not opening soon. And so maybe what we should do is quit worrying about when we're going to open, figure out what we should do right now to reach our seniors. And so we decided that we would take an idea that health promotion was doing and make it larger. And they were basically running some online classes, and what we wanted to do is reach out to our coordinators to build a larger foundation of online classes. So we decided we're going to use the Senior Scoop, our newsletter, to become a course catalog. We are going to use our coordinators. We have 16 of them. They are awesome. Lindsay is one of them. And we reached out to them and said, you guys know how to program. We need you to come up with ways to program online. And then we reached out to our IT people and said, how do we start setting up these WebEx meetings so that our coordinators can do online grief support, online exercise programs, online book clubs. And so really what we did was create a course catalog and used all of our coordinators who do programming through their centers and asked them to do their programming through our virtual senior center. And they jumped on it. They were awesome. And in the first month, we had 60 plus classes, and they run 4 different ways. We have self-guided classes where we send instructions on a craft that they wish to build or a scavenger hunt they wish to do a scavenger hunt, and they do those on their own. We have a few phone-based that we wanted to make sure we had to ensure that people who don't have technology were able to do a book club over the phone or grief support over the phone. And even with our virtual senior centers, you can call in to the number that is attached to the virtual senior center and be a part of the group if needed. And then we had some online live classes. We worked with Red Butte Gardens, with the University of Utah, with other organizations for them to provide classes that were, technically supported by our coordinators. And then we would have them attend those classes live as they happened. Another thing that our coordinators did, especially with online live classes, is they would get the class list, the attendees list, and they would call each one of those attendees and speak to those seniors and try to figure out a way to get them to get on to the WebEx meeting, to understand how WebEx works, to understand how we run our classes. So they became familiar with how we do this. And so our coordinators became partially IT folks who would help reach out and make sure that people understood how to get onto these online live classes. And then finally, our YouTube channel. When we started this process, we had 9 people who were part of our YouTube who had signed up to view our YouTube channel. I was the 9th. That's how I know it was 9. And now we have hundreds, and we have upwards of 12 to 1400 views a month of our YouTube classes. And those YouTube classes are often volunteers or staff who put together presentations on a variety of topics, ranging from cooking class to discussions on volcanoes or whatever. And you can go to them anytime you want to. Please sign up. We'd love to have even more people be a part of our YouTube channel. And so those were the mediums in which we reached out to our seniors. And so I give a huge thank you to our programmers, our IT group, and to Health Promotion for really starting the ball rolling. And I think it's grown quite large. And we will continue to do virtual senior centers for our Meals on Wheels and CCTP clients because they still feel isolation. So, Pauline? Oh, sorry, I apologize. I continue, my bad. We created 6 different categories that we wanted our coordinators to work on to really reach out initially to all of our participants. What we found pretty early on was that crafts were easily our most popular programming. It was very, very interesting how quickly we found out crafts went. So in our first month, we put together a lot of different things, and we learned from it that online classes with exercise were very popular. Crafts were easily our most popular. There were a few book clubs that really kind of took off, and we had some art classes that were well attended. And so what we were trying to do was have a variety of different programming options for our participants to enjoy a variety of different ways to connect with us. And so what it ended up becoming eventually over time was we started building 50 crafts per craft class because they went so quickly. And our art programs and our online exercise programs continued to do exceptionally well. And so we have strong support in a lot of our programs. We have several grief support groups that are very, very popular. And so we ultimately have a strong base in participants who attend our classes. As you can see, these are some of our crafts. We have kits that we put together. Those kits are delivered. Those kits are delivered by our staff or some of our drivers to senior centers, and then seniors who are going to our drive-through meal program can pick up these kits. They don't have to, of course, do our meal program, but they pick them up through that meal drive-through program. And so if I live close to Magna, I can call in, I can ask for some beaded sun catchers, and we get the kit to Magna, and then I go through the drive-through program and I pick up the kit for that. And so we have different ways to reach out to our participants. If they're a Meals on Wheels client, we actually deliver to the Meals on Wheels clients these kits as well. We also have, like it says here, partner with your doctor. You can reach out and talk online with a doctor. We've had different groups that get together and sort of discuss current topics and discuss things that are going on, discuss how they feel during COVID. And then we just have kind of fun. We go anywhere from kind of serious topics and discussion all the way to I'm going to make a clay pot garden bunny, and I'm going to give it to my grandkids when they come over. So we've had a lot of fun with this, and I think it's really reached a lot of people. Now it's Pauline. Thank you.
All right, so like Janae had mentioned, I was overseeing the behind the scenes and some of the items that entails the registration process and the data system, your call center, your online registration. And with that, we also have our marketing group and the course implementation, which James mentioned a little bit about, is our CPCs turning into our tech support, and the supply delivery system, which was using our drivers to take the supplies to the centers, or even delivering to our participants who are part of our Meals on Wheels program because they weren't able to get to the centers. So with our registration process, first thing that we found that we needed, it's not on here, but is an amazing data specialist, and we couldn't do it without her. She knows our system inside out and backwards, and that really makes a big difference. She taught me a lot over the course of our virtual senior center. And with that, we have what our data system needs. We found that with Serve Tracker is what we use, but there are many different options out there. I know in the past people have used Sportsman, what we used to have, and there are many options. But what your system, you got to find out what your system needs. And what we found we needed was some registration parameters. We needed to know some class size limits. With our class size limits, we wanted to make sure if there was a minimum that we had to have for a class. Say a yoga instructor said, I can't do the class unless I have at least 3 individuals signed up. So you have your minimum, you have your maximum. With the health promotion teams classes, they have a maximum to do virtually of 15, no more than 15 in their fitness class. And that was to provide safety and to be able to allow the tech team that's going to be helping on those classes to be able to watch and observe and make sure that seniors are safe and that everyone is able to utilize the WebEx properly. So to be able to create those limits, and then we also had the ones that were, the sky's the limit. If we wanted to have 200 people be a part of this discussion group or a presentation that was going to be presented similar to what we have today, we could set the limit of 200 people. With that class limit, also we needed to be able to create the option of the length of time that we wanted that class or that course to run. Something that we found is to be able to help clarify a class is a single day activity, and then a course is that actual class multiple times, or if it's a one-time course. So you'll see that kind of interchanged with what we have on our presentation today. So the class is the actual one-day set event. And as we did the course, we would set up the course, and maybe it needed to be a 12-week course. Maybe it was an ongoing course that didn't have an end date except for the end of the year or every 3 months. So that was part of the size limits that we need to be able to address with our system. The registration date range, that included being able to set a time that they could start registration. One thing that we found is that people, after being isolated so long, wanted things to do, and so they would jump in as soon as something opened. And those that maybe didn't have access to our online portal were unable to get signed up as quickly as the other individuals. And so we had to start doing open registration starts on a specific day, and we needed to be able to set an end date for registration. If the class was something that was going to be one that could be registered while the program is going or while the course is going, and people could sign up the day of, or if they needed to be able to get the supplies out through our drive-through prior to the class being class date, we need to be able to have a stop for the registration a few days before. And also the cost option. Luckily for us, through COVID, we were able to do everything at minimal cost and more donation based. So there was no cost really associated, but we wanted to be able to put a cost in so that people would be able to pay through the drive-through or for their program if they needed to. And that was also something that they could find online through our portal. And I didn't mention this before, but we did have the option through ServeTracker to have an online portal that our participants could sign themselves up. And those that weren't comfortable, we then created the call center team for, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Another thing we wanted our system to do is be able to track instructors. And our instructors, for the most part, were teachers that we had already within our senior centers. We did get a few new instructors over the course of going virtual with our presentation or our presenter agreements, but for the most part it was our original instructors, and with that they do have followers, and so you could always tell kind of the groupies, because anytime that there was a certain instructor, you would see just a few names that were all the same. So being able to let people know who the instructor is. Our course coordinators are those that we knew to contact or were going to be the host for the class. And along with that, we had that in our system so that the call center team, as they had questions, could be able to refer to those course coordinators and reach out to them to let them know of any issues, or again, if there were any questions. And then creating the course roster. This was something that was very important for the whole, not only the back end, but for the course coordinators to be able to contact. Like James said, they were calling individuals, they were letting them know when they had items to be picked up, and they were also letting them know if there were any changes to the class or things that they needed to test before the class. So they would call and say, let's get you set up for your WebEx. And some things that we found is we had to have specialized rosters created. So I went to our awesome data specialist, and she helped us be able to pull, names, addresses, and everything, so we had that accessible. We found that, like I said, we ended up needing a call center so that those individuals that couldn't register online had somewhere to be able to access signing up for programs. We have a great call center team. It started with just a few, and then we ended up finding that we needed to pull in more of our office specialists. And for the most part, it is our office specialists, but we do have a few others that were available to help with that call center team. The most important thing is being able to have them be on the same page. They are at 16 different locations, and being able to have the same information going to each person was very important. So we had information on the classes sent out. Each of them had the course catalog so that they knew what the seniors were referring to. And even with that, that was adjusting every so often. We found that we needed course numbers so that we could get specific classes, because some participants ran into being signed up for the wrong class because they had a similar name, or the senior had mentioned one name and it was actually under a different name. So we started doing course catalog numbers. Our database program, like I said, something that we could be able to input individuals in and sign them up right there on the ServeTracker, and be able to do cancellations for them, because as we all know, even when we're all at home and isolated, we still ended up having something come up that would cause us to have to cancel the program that they wanted to sign up for. So, and again, making sure it was a shared document, that everything was up to date in real time. We had different learning experiences with that. So we were able to iron those things out, but something that's a shared document in real time. Again, awesome customer service is needed for your call center team, where they can be able to work over the phone and work with individuals that may be upset or having difficulties, or individuals that need someone to talk to, being able to set those time limits of not gabbing for the whole hour, but being able to create good customer service and reach the needs of the seniors. And then again, accurate information. And then the other portion of our registration was our online registration. Creating equal access. Like I said, we had some individuals that as soon as a class came available, they wanted to sign up. So we had to create the class limit of you can't register until the last Monday of the month when everyone is available to do so. Accessing the internet and email, something that we found was really helpful is one of our call center team members would send out a welcome email of this is what we are going to be starting, and if you are a part of our phone-based class, please expect a call to get the phone number that you'll be joining, or if you're a part of our WebEx, please expect and watch for an email that will send you the link to the email, the WebEx. Or if you are a part of the pickup, please make sure that we are able to know what center you need to be picked up, have that item picked up at, and any information that they may need for their program, along with who their coordinator was so that they could be able to reach out if they had any questions. And part of that we found, and we have started the pilot program for earlier this year. This was something that was an idea from Marianne, who is our health promotion manager, and it was an iPad loaner program because we found many seniors did not have access to the WebEx or the ability to do online, and we created an iPad loaner program where we purchased the iPads, and then we were able to do about a 6-week course of teaching individuals how to do basic utilizing the iPad, how to use email, how to get onto the WebEx, and then they're able to keep that iPad for 3 months to continue to be able to access classes, but also to be able to do other items that they would like to do over the internet. And then our senior scoop. Like James had mentioned, we created the senior scoop to get the information out to the participants through the drive-through, and it turned into adding in our course catalog. So the new newsletter approach provided information for our courses. It provided information on the services that we have as a division, and we would do different highlights of different sections and give updates of what people and sections were doing over the course of going virtual and through COVID. And then we would distribute that through our senior center meal programs. We have it online, and then we distribute it during our vaccine clinics that we had back in January, February, and March. And then we always share it with our community partners and through the Meals on Wheels program.
I do want to point out just on the senior scoop, just for the amount of space for our presentation, these 4 pages are just 4 pages of the catalog. Our entire senior scoop are more pages than this, but since we were talking about the virtual senior center, we just included these particular pages, and we had it broken down so people could identify what type of program they were looking for. So you can see we have our on this very first page are the self-guided courses, and then we broke it down by category. So much like you would experience if you were signing up for courses at a community college or at the university, breaking them down by categories so people could find them. And what we found was that people were really looking for particular information. Like Pauline mentioned, we have some groupies for particular instructors. So we added the instructor's name on there so people knew if it was Bonnie teaching a class, they knew they wanted to sign up for that one. They didn't want it if it was Jessica or whatever name it was. But so we had those, and also we started adding pictures to our crafts because the crafts were incredibly popular, but also we all want to know what it looks like before we delve into it. So huge shout out to our Senior Scoop team because this document does take a lot of effort, but I think it really pays off. And I know some of the people that put this together are on this call as well. So huge shout out to the Senior Scoop team because this document has not only allowed us to have the course catalog and get people interested in the virtual senior center, but having a general newsletter for our entire division, I think has helped pull our division together better so people know about all of the resources that are provided in aging and adult services with Salt Lake County, as opposed to just a singular newsletter for each center and then each section or each program doing advertising on their own. We all still do advertising, but the Senior Scoop, I think, has been a huge asset that we've brought in over this past year. And we'll continue to have the Senior Scoop virtual catalog section, but also additional pages for marketing about the division as a whole, I think is really beneficial with that. So sorry to jump in there, Pauline.
No worries, thank you. And then we move over to our course implementation. And I believe this was, sorry, James, was this? Turn the time over to James.
Thank you. What we wanted to do when we started all of our courses is to make sure that we had a very specific process by which we did every single one of our classes. And so as people signed up and created a roster of our classes, we would ask the coordinators to reach out to those participants to ensure that that was the class they wanted to sign up for, to ensure that they understood what the process was to sign up for that class, and then provide technical support if needed, or how to receive supplies if needed. And so our coordinators would reach out, say, I see that you've signed up for an online course. Have you ever been on a WebEx class before? And if they said no, they'd say, okay, well, let's try it right now. They would send them an invitation for a WebEx class right then and there. And then they'd walk them through the steps to get on to that WebEx class so that it would make sense to them. And so that when they would sign up, we'd send them a link, and it wouldn't be the first time they were trying it. And then we got pretty good at having people pretty quickly understand how WebEx works. And we use WebEx and not Zoom, and so it's a slightly different process, but we found that the coordinators were very good at communicating how this process works and what they needed to do. They'd also reach out and say, hey, we understand that you'd like to do this craft. Which center would you like to pick the craft kit from? And then they'd tell them, and then they would put together that craft kit and then send it through our transportation program to be picked up over there. The thing that's nice is that once the coordinator really reaches out to them, that coordinator is someone that they can reach back out to ask questions if there are any questions that are needed. And so it was very important that there was a person attached to the virtual senior center. And so we had the person who created that craft, who created that online class, who is going to be running an exercise program through the University of Utah, be that person that they could reach out to if there were issues. And there are always issues. And so quite often, I'm sure our coordinators are getting phone calls while a class is going on saying, I can't hear anything. They walk them through that entire process. And so we had our coordinators work with each other to make sure that the kits were delivered from one center to the next center. We made sure that we, in the Serve Tracker program, had information, our registration program, I should say, we had information that said where this person is picking up or where this needs to be delivered to. And so we would do our best to make sure that we reached out and had every single kit find its spot, or every single class have someone attached to it so that they always had a coordinator that they could talk to if needed. As you can see here, Lindsay is right now our host and tech support. This is a perfect example of what we do. The slight difference in our WebEx events or WebEx classes or courses is that actually you can kind of see the people who are in the class. There are discussions that can happen. Lindsay would act as somebody who says, hey, if you have a question, please raise your hand, which you can do, or please write in the comments something that you may have a question about. And the whole time they'd be monitoring the program. The coordinators are very, very good at WebEx now. They have a very clear idea of what they're doing. In fact, if you had been here at the very beginning of this meeting, you would have seen Lindsay kind of talking us through how to do all the stuff we're doing, because they really have a firm grasp on what's happening. And then we, as we move forward, one of the things that we're hoping to do is have programming in centers increase. And one of what we'd like to also do is have some of those programs. Let's say we have someone coming in and doing a presentation on elder abuse or fraud, and instead of it just being for those participants at that center, having it be recorded so that we can put it on our YouTube channel, or have it stream live so that people can attend it and ask questions if they have it. And so we hope to continue to have a robust catalog of courses for people who can't come to our centers, for people who want to join us from different counties. We've had multiple people who've joined us from different states. And so we're trying our hardest to do as much outreach as possible to make sure that people go, this program at the senior centers in Salt Lake County really appeals to me. And so we'll continue to do this. I think we'll have a smaller catalog because our programmers are very busy in their center, but we will continue this as long as we possibly can. And so I think it's been highly beneficial for our participants, and really for any senior who wants to join.
Hey, so I'm back for our last slide, and just an evaluation of how things were going. We have 4 comments from some surveys that we did, and I think these comments, first I should say, I could put a list of all the comments that we've received about the benefit of the virtual senior center, but these 4 comments really hit the target areas that we were talking about when we first started creating the virtual senior center. So the first one: relieves the isolation and helps me learn skills and ideas to cope with our situation. So this person specifically is addressing the fact that they're at home isolating, and they were feeling isolated and needed to be able to connect with people again. And the virtual senior center was able to hit that. The next: love that the virtual classes are more inclusive. And sorry, I cut off part of the end of that. But this one was that they're more inclusive and allows everyone to participate, which is something that I hadn't, in all honesty, at least I hadn't thought of, that we were providing a more inclusive approach. And it really was, because we were connecting more people, and connecting people who may not have been connected in other ways, because we have our working seniors and our retired seniors and our caregivers and our homebound seniors. So people who may not have naturally been pulled together in a senior center were now pulled together in this virtual, in the virtual aspect. The next one: because I work, I've not been able to take advantage of many classes that occur during the day. So virtual classes have given me the opportunity to take dance and exercise classes. And I think that's fantastic. And I imagine that person, if they were working during the pandemic, I would imagine they continue to work. And now they have a resource that they can continue to do, that they may not be able to come to our center, but we're still connecting with them and still providing a resource that is beneficial for their life. And then I really liked, we had a couple comments similar to this, I really like not having to get all mixed up and drive somewhere in my car. I just like turning the computer on. Which, let's be honest, some of us, it's really nice to not have to put yourself together and go somewhere, especially if you're just interested in one class that day. For some of our seniors, that may take a long time to get ready to go to the center. If you're using the transportation to go to the center, it may be taking you, a couple hours a day when really you were interested in the one class. And so it provides some flexibility for people. And then we also have our data point, and James had mentioned this earlier when he was talking about the classes. So typically when our senior centers are open, our number one classes are fitness classes. Not at all of our centers. We are unique for the state in the fact that we have so many senior centers, but we have a lot of centers, and our centers vary on what the top item is, the top category. But in general, most of our centers, the top category are fitness classes. People love our fitness classes, which is fantastic. And we love that they love going to those classes. Art classes are really popular, certain classes, but certainly not all of them. But what we found with our virtual senior center is those art, culture, and music classes were slammed. So like James mentioned, initially I think we had a bare minimum of 12 craft kits needed to be available per class, and that's laughable now because we had so many classes that within a first couple of hours of registration being open, they were completely gone. So then we had to just keep increasing it. You have to have a minimum of 30 craft kits. For one, our card making kit, I think there were some months that she had 50 kits and she would still run out. I do want to say we also did not put a limit on the number of classes people could sign up for. And so we had some people that they would come and they were picking up 10 kits. And there was some concern about that, is are we making sure that there's enough for everyone? And we did. We had lots of crafts, and we had some crafts that we didn't run out of supplies. So we did have a lot of different things available, but we never put a limit on how much people could participate, because especially during the intense part of the lockdown, some of the crafts were taking, it's an hour-long craft activity, and they might be home by themselves for the entire month. So let's have them have different things to do. So we didn't want to limit people's ability to participate in the classes. If they had a need for an activity and wanted to sign up, we allowed them to sign up. And like I said, people just, particularly with crafts, really were very interested in many of our crafts. And kudos to our coordinators because they were so resourceful. We actually didn't spend very much money at all doing the virtual senior center all of last year because so many of our senior center program coordinators were resourceful with using supplies that they already had in the building. They were able to get donations. There was just a wide variety of ways that they were able to get the resources to make crafts or to do programs. You can also see our health and wellness and our fitness classes were still very popular. They just didn't compare to the same level as our craft classes, but still very.
We are just about at time, Janae, so I'm going to ask you to start wrapping up. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Acton. So in general, there is how our virtual senior center operated. We do have time. We may have time for a few questions if anyone has questions, but I haven't seen any in the chat yet. Does anyone have any questions?
There was one question about Andrea Harris asked if she could get some copies of catalogs at the geriatric clinic. So we could touch base with her about that.
Yes, of course. If you send your contact information over in the chat, we will make sure that we can connect and get some of those over to you.
All right. Well, we'd like to thank Janae and James and Pauline. We've reached the end of the session for the Utah Elder Justice Conference, and I want to thank you for attending this session about virtual senior centers. And the next session will start at 10:30, so we hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.
One question just came in. Marie Jorgensen asked, who were your coordinators, staff members, or volunteers? I think that is in regards to the people running the programs.
Yeah, so our program coordinators, all of our senior centers have a program coordinator at them, which is a staff member, but we also did use volunteers for teaching a variety of our programs, but but paid staff were the ones that were actually coordinating the classes. Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.